It's midday in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Praia. Good afternoon, and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink, and here are the top stories. Amnesty International accuses Nigerian army of detaining girls freed from Boko Haram. Military denies allegation.
When these girls escape from Boko Haram, they end up in the hands of the military. And even in the hands of the military, they never get respite. They also get another rounds of atrocities.
In Ghana, opposition Mahama and incumbent Akufo-Addo trade words over corruption allegations.
It is anger against the economic mismanagement, the hardships, the widening inequalities in our country, and the unprecedented corruption that has become the signature of this government.
And let me state it again for the record. I will not set aside due process and the rules of natural justice on the altar of the fight against corruption.
Opposition parties in Cote d'Ivoire reject amendment to penal code, and production starts at Senegal's first offshore oil field. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us, and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. Let's begin with the report by Amnesty International that dozens of women and young girls have been unlawfully detained and abused in Nigerian military detention facilities after escaping captivity by Boko Haram extremists in the country's northeast. In the report published on Monday, Amnesty noted that some of the women were detained with their children for years because of their real or perceived association with extremists. It cited 126 interviews, mostly with survivors over the 14 years since the Islamist extremists launched their insurgency. The report echoes past human rights concerns about the Nigerian military, which in the past has been accused of extrajudicial killings and illegal arrests in one of the world's longest conflicts. Issa Sunusi is the country's director of Amnesty International.
Well, this report is about what some numbers of girls, up to 1,000, that have gone through a lot of suffering, a lot of violations by the military and by Boko Haram. Over the last 10 years, Boko Haram has been abducting girls and putting them through forced marriage and putting them through sexual slavery and putting them through harsh labor and many other atrocities. Unfortunately, when these girls escape from Boko Haram, they end up in the hands of the military. And even in the hands of the military, they never get respite. They also get another rounds of atrocities, including violations, including insults, and many other things. Indefinite detention and many other things improved on that. But what we know is that what we have said in that report is something that is evidence-based.
Well, we will bring you the full interview in our guest interview segment. In the meantime, the Nigerian Defense Headquarters has responded to the allegations made by Amnesty International in its recent report, categorically denying the allegations and reaffirming its commitment to upholding international humanitarian law and human rights principles. Major General Edward Buba, Director of Defense Media Operations, disclosed this in a statement on Monday, noting that the military operates within the bounds of the law of armed conflict and has a robust military justice system to address any proven cases of misconduct. It said the military encourages organizations like Amnesty International to substantiate the allegations through established channels rather than resorting to public statements. According to him, under the leadership of General Christopher Musa, the Chief of Defense Staff, the AFN has a zero-tolerance policy for indiscipline and improper conduct. Standing court-martials are in place to address any form of misbehavior by erring personnel, ensuring that the military maintains its professionalism and integrity. Now let's take it to Ghana, where, ahead of the December general elections, former president and flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, NDC, John Mahama, has accused members of the ruling New Patriotic Party, NPP, of living vulgar and opulent lifestyles like Arabian kings at the expense of the ordinary Ghanaian. According to him, notwithstanding the harsh socio-economic difficulties that the current administration has heaped on Ghanaians, some of these officials and their families flaunt their ill-gotten wealth in the faces of the public by sometimes chartering private jets at $20,000 per hour for trips. He has therefore vowed to retrieve every single cedi unlawfully taken from taxpayers that has been embezzled and misused by the government appointees.
There's a rising feeling of frustration and anger bubbling up amongst our young people. Justifiable anger and frustration against this failed administration. It is anger against the economic mismanagement, the hardships, the widening inequalities in our country, and the unprecedented corruption that has become the signature of this government. And yes, you have every right to be angry and disappointed in this government. It is understandable because this government has received more funds than any other government in the history of our country, including the windfall that they got from the COVID-19 pandemic, which they willfully mismanaged. The anger of the young people of Ghana is perfectly understandable because they face a real and present danger of unprecedented permanent unemployment if things do not change dramatically. The real possibility exists of some persons attaining the pension age of 60 without ever being employed if the NPP government continues to stay in power.
However, in a swift reaction, President Nana Akufo-Addo dismissed the accusations of alleged corruption against some of his appointees. Responding to former President John Mahamma's allegation, Akufo-Addo emphasized that his government is committed to upholding due process and the principles of justice in the ongoing fight against corruption.
I'm sure we are all aware of the statement by the former president and perennial NDC presidential candidate, John Dramani Mahama, stigmatizing me as the clearing agent, because for him, mere allegation without more is enough to merit condemnation of an accused public official, especially one of my administration. For my part, and let me state it again for the record, I will not set aside due process and the rules of natural justice on the altar of the fight against corruption, no matter how much opprobrium this position incurs for me.
Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo. Meanwhile, the Ghana Armed Forces has cautioned against attacks on its men deployed to attack illegal mining in the country. The caution comes in the wake of comment made by Ernest Frimpong, the New Patriotic Party parliamentary candidate for Amenfi East in Ghana's western region, to the effect that miners were free to retaliate or attack soldiers who attempt to stop them from mining. His comments have been widely condemned, with increasing calls from a section of the public for his arrest. WDL's Accra correspondent Nadi Tete report.
According to the Ghana Armed Forces, they had taken serious note of the viral social media videos of the NPP's parliamentary candidate for Amenfi East, Ernest Frimpong, urging a retaliation cum attacks on soldiers and security personnel following his claim that all task forces against illegal mining have been disbanded, thus no soldier has the right to check the activities of miners. In an official statement, the Ghana Armed Forces cautions the public against making such unlawful utterances, highlighting the significant threat they pose to national security and stability. The Ghana Armed Forces condemned any form of incitement or encouragement of violence against soldiers, reassuring the public of its unwavering commitment to safeguarding state security and protecting civilians. The statement emphasized the Ghana Armed Forces personnel, along with other security agencies, are dedicated to maintaining high standards of professionalism, discipline, and respect for human rights in the execution of their duties. The Ghana Armed Forces further reminded the public to report any soldier misconduct to the nearest police station or military barracks for appropriate disciplinary action. They clarified that soldiers have the right to self-defense when faced with imminent threats or attacks and are authorized to use necessary and proportionate force in such situations. Reiterating that assaulting or attacking soldiers is a grave offense, punishable by law, the Ghana Armed Forces urged all citizens to respect, cooperate with, and support the security forces. Meanwhile, security analyst Dr. Adam Bona has called for the arrest of the aspiring lawmaker, describing his conduct as worrying.
If we are not in a state of lawlessness, how can such a person utter such comments in the presence of the regional minister? And the regional minister goes on to say it's been disbanded. And we hear this in this terrible manner. So for me, it is a shame. I have called for the immediate arrest of this parliamentary candidate. It's not about the law.
For WADR, Nadi Tete, Accra.
In Cote d'Ivoire, the opposition has rejected the adoption of a bill amending the penal code. This is after the country's members of parliament adopted a text submitted by the Ivorian executive last week. And while speaking to the press at the end of the week, the PPACI, the party of former President Laurent Gbagbo, accused the government of wanting to muzzle the opposition and dissenting voices. Here for the details with Ogabirika.
In the new text, Article 185 stipulates that any person who advocates crimes such as murder, looting, fire or destruction of buildings, among others, will be punishable by a penalty ranging from 1 to 5 years of imprisonment and a fine of 5,000 to 5 million CFA francs. The text also targets any persons who make appeals to the public with the aim of disapproving the authority. But these new changes to the penal code have angered the opposition. Speaking to the press last week, Laurent Gbagbo's African People's Party of Côte d'Ivoire also voiced its opposition to the new text. According to the political party, Article 185 is unconstitutional and tramples on liberties. As a reminder, the new text was adopted last Thursday with 124 votes for the RHDP against 72 for the opposition.
Ogubierika reporting there. Nearly 1.9 million people are internally displaced in Burkina Faso, with over 117,600 refugees fleeing to neighboring countries. This is together with other countries such as Mali and Niger. This was contained in a report by the UNHCR. David Vincent has the rest of the story.
The UNCHR report further stated that Mali has nearly 400,000 internal displaced persons, while over 100,000 Malian refugees are in neighboring countries. Niger, according to the report, has over 350,000 internally displaced people, with 94,000 Nigerian refugees in neighboring countries, primarily Mali. The UNHCR is urging the international community to maintain aid during instability, to prevent the situation from worsening, collaborate among humanitarian development and peace organizations, and allocate more funding to local organizations for a more effective response. It also urged that long-term solutions to provide essential humanitarian assistance while strengthening the resilience of displaced populations and host communities should be planned in order to arrest this situation in the Sahel. UNHCR is also requesting around 243.4 billion CFA francs from the international community to address critical humanitarian needs in the Sahel. These funds will focus on protection, aid, and long-term solutions for displaced people and host communities. A recent report by the Norwegian Refugee Council, NRC, identifies Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger as among the world's most neglected displacement crises. The report also highlights the urgent need for a coordinated international response.
David Vincent filed that report. Now we take you to the Gambia, where on Monday the police used a tear gas to disperse vendors after a confrontation with officials clearing a road. Dozens of the vendors have been also arrested, according to the police. Sankli Jankwin Banjo tells us more.
On Monday, in Brikama, the West Coast region of the Gambia, a confrontation erupted between officials of the National Road Authority and street vendors as the authorities attempted to clear the roads. The situation quickly escalated when vendors resisted, prompting Police Intervention Unit PIU. To disperse the crowd, officers deployed tear gas. But police spokesperson Momodu Musanjai could not establish if tear gas was used, although he confirmed the arrest of dozens of people.
Yes, at this moment I cannot confirm that, but I can confirm that it's part of our procedure, that at certain level to be able to control the crowd or the mob or whosoever or a group of people, that is the only option available at the time. Yes, this could be used. A number of people have been arrested actually, and among them is one council member of the Brikama Area Council. As I speak to you at this moment, they've been processed. Bail has been opened to them. I think there are more than a dozen.
No major injuries from the incident were reported. All the markets and vendors in West Coast region are under the purview of Brikama Area Council. And their chairman, Yankuba Dabo, while expressing his anger on the use of tear gas by the police, says it was the council that gave authority for the vendors to use the said roads ahead of the Muslim feast of Eid.
Council is mandated as empowered by law that during festivities, we can turn some of the secondary roads into temporal markets for vendors. We did not establish such laws on our own. We blocked this road as a council and gave the authority to the vendors to use it. We blocked it to allow vendors to use it as a council.
Recall, the Gambia government has launched for the past 6 months Operation Cleared Roads, saying road clearance is part of ongoing efforts to maintain public order and ease traffic congestion. For Newslink in West Africa, the Macrass Radio, I'm Sankulechenko reporting from Banjul.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Amnesty International accuses Nigerian army of detaining girls freed from Boko Haram. Military denies allegation. In Ghana, opposition Mahama and incumbent Akufo-Addo trade words over corruption allegations. Opposition parties in Cote d'Ivoire reject amendment to penal code. And still ahead in the news, production starts at Senegal's first offshore oil field. We do have a guest interview segment, a newspaper review, and sports news. Please stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
Well, don't forget, we are streaming live on wadr.org, YouTube, and Facebook. Now, Senegal has joined the club of oil-producing countries on Tuesday, as Australian group Woodside Energy announced that production had started in the country's first offshore project. While Senegal's fossil fuel output is not expected to be as high as that of bigger producers such as Nigeria, there are hopes the oil and gas industry will bring billions of dollars in revenue to the country and contribute to transforming its economy. The floating facility is moored about 100 kilometers offshore. The vessel has a storage capacity of 1.3 million barrels. Francis Boniface has the rest of the story.
The Deepwater project aims to produce 100,000 barrels of oil per day. The field also contains natural gas. Elated over the development, Woodside Chief Executive Meg O'Neill described the extraction of first oil from the Sangoma field, a key milestone. Woodside has an 82% stake in the Deepwater project, with the remainder held by Senegal's state-owned energy company Petrosen. The discovery of oil and gas fields in 2014 raised great hopes for the developing country, with state-owned energy firm Petrosen expecting the sector to generate more than $1 billion per year over the next 3 decades. Petrosen General Manager Tieno Lee said the country has never been so well positioned for opportunities for growth, innovation, and success in the economic and social development. The phase 1 development of the Sangoma field comprises 23 wells, 21 of which have been drilled. Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, who took office in April, has announced the renegotiation of oil and gas contracts as part of reforms he promised during the election campaign. Senegal also has a liquefied natural gas project at its border with Mauritania, and production there could begin in the 3rd quarter. The Greater Tortue Ahmeyim LNG project, which involves British energy giants BP, US firm Cosmos Energy, Mauritanian oil and gas company SHM, and Petrosen, aims to produce around 2.5 million tons of LNG per year.
Francis Boniface filed a report. In Sierra Leone, the members of the Public Accounts Committee PAC on Monday started public hearings and examinations of financial infractions involving various ministries, departments, and agencies, as outlined in the 2022 Auditor General's report. The report is in accordance with Section 1194 of the 1991 Constitution of Sierra Leone. Echatiso has the rest of the report.
Ibrahim Tawa Conte, Deputy Speaker of Parliament and Chair of the committee, announced that the Ministry of Finance, the Accountant General's Department, and the National Revenue Authority will be the first to face the committee. In a recent address at an Audit Service Sierra Leone event attended by vote controllers, Conte emphasized the importance of accountability and warned against making excuses. Conte stressed that appointees of the president does not exempt public officials from being accountable for their actions. He called on PAC members to set aside political differences and collaborate in holding public officials accountable. This approach, he argued, is essential for the effective implementation of the Auditor General's recommendations and for ensuring public accountability. These hearings are a crucial step in ensuring financial transparency and accountability within the government, reinforcing the PAC's commitment to upholding stringent financial oversight.
That was Echa Tisu with that report.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
All right, let's head now to Monrovia as we join Darlington Popper for the newspaper review.
We begin a review process with the newspaper. Teenager gives birth in prison. And we see the photograph of the Monrovia Central Prison. Senators vote to establish rubber board as ban remains in force. Monrovia's pollution crisis. LWSC struggles with sewage control. Wadr Liberia Water and Sewage Corporation. On the back page of the newspaper, Indian businessman promises to invest in Liberia. From the newspaper, the Oracle newspaper is next. Global oil players looking to Liberia again. Bwaka Bass Kofa's leadership on the back page of the Oracle newspaper. CDC's Koji differs with President over A.B. Kroman's suspension. From the Oracle newspaper, the Hot Pepper newspaper is now our last stop for today's edition of Press Review. The risky mission, a naked desperation for change, not change, is from the opposition Congress for Democratic Change. RPP demands clarity, transparency in UP government, expresses skepticism about gains made. The Liberian People's Party, LPP, headed by Councillor Tewansei Gonglo, who endorsed the Unity Party in the 2023 presidential runoff election, is demanding clarity, transparency, and tangible results in all promises areas made by the UP government, noting that the Liberian people deserve real progress and not just promises. In response to the Unity Party's administration's achievements within its first 100 days of being in power, the LPP observed that while the Unity Party administration has made some progress, the LPP remains skeptical about the depth and sustainability of these efforts. We will leave it right there. We see Tewansei Gonglo and Joseph Yuma Bwaka, president, on the front page of the Hot Pepper newspaper. On the back page of the Hot Pepper newspaper, quickly, this service to the rule of law. LMBA describes low budgetary allocation to the judiciary. The Liberia National Bar Association. In the face of challenges confronting the Unity Party, partisan calls for mini convention. Bill Mountain investigates industrial accident, expresses regret. On that note, that is, I would love to conclude today's edition of Press Review. But before we go, these are the newspapers we actually followed on today's edition. We followed the newspaper, the Oracle newspaper, and the Hot Pepper newspaper was our last stop. On that note, thank you so much for following Press Review, and bye-bye.
I was Arlington Papa in Monrovia with the newspaper review.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
In this segment, we'll take you back to a first surrender report released by Amnesty International accusing the Nigerian army of illegally detaining girls and young women who have escaped from Boko Haram captivity under the suspicion that they hold allegiance to Boko Haram insurgency. According to the Amnesty report, 31 interviewees said they were unlawfully held in military barracks for several days and some as much as 4 years between 2015 and mid-2023 because of their real or perceived association to Boko Haram. The military has been involved in armed battle with the non-state actor Boko Haram for over a decade in the nation's northeast, an uprising in which the UN said has claimed more than 35,000 people. Seeking clarity on this report, we spoke with Isa Sanusi, country director of Amnesty International.
Well, this report is about what some numbers of girls, up to 1,000, that have gone through a lot of suffering, a lot of violations by the military and by Boko Haram. Over the last 10 years, Boko Haram has been abducting girls and putting them through forced marriage and putting them through sexual slavery and putting them through harsh labor and many other atrocities. Unfortunately, when these girls escape from Boko Haram, they end up in the hands of the military. And even in the hands of the military, they never get respite. They also get another rounds of atrocities, including violations, including insults, and many other things. Indefinite detention and many other things improved on that. But what we know is that what we have said in that report is something that is evidence-based. So this is what the report is about.
But the Nigerian military has outrightly denied this and that there is no evidence as to what this report is saying. How true is this?
Well, we just saw the statement by the military yesterday, and we are still preparing our response to it. But what we know is that what we have said in that report is something that is evidence-based. And that is why we even invited the military to respond to it. So if they have improved, they should present the evidence. And when we say that they have violated these girls, we presented evidence. We presented the girls in their own voices. We have a radio. It is on, a video. It is on YouTube. Anyone can watch it. We interviewed these girls. So if they have evidence, they should also bring it. It's not about making statements only. The military or something, but we are trying to make sure that Nigerians are respected by their own law enforcement agencies, and any violation it will not be tolerated by anybody again.
Over time, the Nigerian government has claimed that there has been improvement with human rights situations with its agencies. Do you agree to this?
Well, earlier in the year, I think early in March, we have presented our in April, we have presented our annual report, and the human rights violations continue as usual. There is no any difference at all. There is no any change. So it's not there is any improvement. There might be some changes, but Nigerians continue to face daily atrocities from the police, and conflict areas there continues to be violations by the military. Explained the fact that human rights violations continue to happen in conflict areas. There are conflicts in the northeast, there are conflicts around northwest.
Issa Sanusi is the country director of Amnesty International. And Dankri is here with Sport News.
Hello there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Nigeria's World Cup qualifiers campaign suffered a major setback after a 2-1 defeat by Benin on Monday. Benin came from behind to overcome the Super Eagles thanks to goals from Jodel Dusu and Steve Moni. Having drawn against South Africa 3 days earlier, Nigeria needed only a win to put their qualifiers on track. However, their campaign has gone downward spiral and now instilled genuine fears that the Super Eagles could miss their place again in the next World Cup, having failed to qualify for 2022 Qatar World Cup. The result propelled Benin to the summit of Group C, while the Super Eagles see their FIFA World Cup chances heavily dented in a result that sees them move down to 5th, just a point behind Zimbabwe, who are away to South Africa on Tuesday evening. Following last week's 2-1 loss to Guinea, Algeria enjoyed an away victory by the same scoreline over Uganda on Monday, as reported by CAF. Elsewhere, Egypt maintained their lead at the top of Group A, following a hard-fought 1-1 draw against Guinea-Bissau away from home on Monday. Elsewhere, the Black Stars continue grinding out results in the FIFA World Cup qualifiers, following a 4-3 win against Central African Republic CAR in Kumasi on Monday. Jordan Ayew was the star of the day after scoring a hat-trick to help Ghana maintain their winning streak to 2 consecutive matches. Burkina Faso dropped 2 points on the road after a 2-2 draw against Sierra Leone, and Mozambique stunned Guinea with a narrow 1-0 win in a dramatic encounter in Group G. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And that's it on this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and David Vincent for the technical assistance. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3.